welcome to everybody from school. My name is Jeremy Walker, Headmaster, and I'm delighted to be joined by Victoria, who I'm going to introduce in just a few moments' time. So this is the second of our In Conversation With events, following the success of the one that we had with Harry Gratian just before Christmas. And of course, this evening, it's a really interesting group. It's the first 5 girls to ever come to St. Peter's in 1976. And of course, we're timing this event to coincide with International Women's Day. We've had a ton of really fantastic questions that have come through already. And please do use the chat facility on Zoom to put some more in as you go. We will do our best. It is a great big long list and there's some tremendous things here. And I know that there's some fascinating answers and conversation that lies ahead of us. So without further ado, I'd like to first of all ask my co-host Victoria to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm Victoria Innes. I left school in 1990. I was a member of Queen's, and I had the great honour of being the first female head of school. So it's wonderful to welcome the first girls to the school today, and I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Lovely, Victoria. Thank you very much indeed. So I'm going to ask the girls, the ladies, to introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Louise Morales.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Good, and thank you very much, Jeremy and Victoria. So you will have known me all as Louise Adams. I was a member of Queen's too, and I have a couple of brothers who were at St. Peter's and also a stepfather. And I've been living in France now for 20 years.
Lovely, Louise, thank you. And Nikki Goodwin.
Hi, I'm Nikki Goodwin. I was Nikki Jesper, married Simon, who was in schoolhouse. My father, 2 uncles and younger brother were at the school as well, and I'm now living North Tyneside by the sea.
Lovely, thank you. And Zoe Jones, beaming in from Buckinghamshire.
Hello, I'm Zoe Jones. I was Zoe Jackson. I was in Grove House along with Nikki, and I have nobody else at the school. I never have had.
Okay. And Sue Miller.
Hi, I'm Sue Miller. I was Sue Elston. My father was at the school, and my brother joined in the same year as myself in 3rd form. I was in Queen's House, where I met Kevin Miller, my now husband, and we have 4 children, all of whom went into through St. Oliver's and St. Peter's, and they also were in Queen's House.
Lovely, thank you. And finally, to Louise Dennison.
Hello, I was Louise Stansfield. I was in Queen's with Sue and Louise. I then went on to marry Nigel Dennison after school. Nigel's father, uncles and sister were all at school. We then had 3 children who went to the school, and they were all in Queen's as well.
Lovely. Right. It's great to have you with us. And so, because we only have the 1 hour to be with each other, I'm going to pass straight over to Victoria then to lead off with some questions.
Okay, so we've had lots of great questions come in, and the first ones come from Robert Hudson and Jane McLeod, who wanted to ask you, what made you want to come to St. Peter's, to an all-boys school in the 6th form? And if I could direct that first of all to Louise Dennison, please.
Right, great question, and hi to Jane because she's one of my book club friends. So, I'd been away at boarding school since I was 11, and I was very keen to do my 2 years in 6th form at a day school. So I suppose it was narrowed down to the day schools in York at the time, and I think the fact that St. Peter's was opening up to girls and just from the education point of view, I think really that's why my parents chose it for me.
I was at a comprehensive school. I was at Fulford Comprehensive, and I very much wanted to move schools at 6th form. St. Peter's had a fantastic reputation, and I saw an advertisement in the York Press for a scholarship, and it was also inviting girls, which drew my attention to it. And yeah, that's how I entered St. Peter's.
Were your parents aware of that, though, Zoe?
No, I kept that secret from them. I applied for it without them knowing, and the first thing they knew was an envelope, which I was very happy about because it said I'd got a part scholarship, and I just had to tell them that they had to pay the other bit of the fees. They were very happy too. They were very, very happy.
Like Louise, I was away at boarding school as well. I was down south, and I had enough really. I just wanted to come home, and the timing was right that St Peter's was starting the girls, and my brother was moving up to the school at the same time. Well, he was moving up from St Olive's, and it just sort of seemed to all fit into place. That's why I ended up there.
Yes, and I was at a comprehensive school at home in Saltburn, and they didn't have a sixth form, so my mum and dad were looking for somewhere for me to go, and they must have heard about St Peter's accepting girls, because I wasn't sure about it, but my brother was beginning in third form, the same as you, Nikki, and so mum and dad thought it would be very nice for both of us to go there, and so that's how I ended up at St Peter's. Yeah.
And I suppose that just leaves me now. Well, I was already in the centre of York at York College for Girls. And I think my parents just regarded it as a fantastic opportunity to be able to be one of the first girls to make history, to go to St Peter's, and with it having a fantastic reputation, and also the fact that my brother was there, it just seemed to flow into it too. So it was really a really fantastic experience for me, I guess.
I suppose this leads to another question that we got from Becky Trevitt, who wanted to know how long the process was from you starting to go to school, and whether you actually always wanted to go. And I suppose we've sort of covered that a bit, but just to understand a bit more about the process and how you actually got to school would be really interesting.
I struggle with this.
I sat, whether it was I'm sure it wasn't a scholarship exam, but I think I sat some kind of entrance exam.
Yes, I can't remember sitting an exam. I just feel that I was the opportunity was there, and mum and dad must have applied to the school, and because my brother was going as well. As you say, Louise, I may have sat an entrance exam, but if I'm perfectly honest, my memory of that is a bit vague.
I have no memory of doing any kind of entrance exam, or I just thought we had to get a certain amount of O levels, and that was it.
I remember, Louise, you actually sat the exam with me. You were
Did
yeah, you were in the hall on the same day as me.
It was an exam, I can remember that.
Oh, perhaps I didn't then.
Well, do you remember us being there too, Zoe?
No, you were there. It was Louise and I on the particular one I did. And there was the head boy, John
Healy.
John Healy was there with us as well.
Really? Wow.
It's really funny, the things that you don't remember, isn't it? I do remember sitting that entrance exam. It was exhausting.
Well, nowadays we sort of throw flapjack at them, sort of regular intervals during the day, and try and sort of treat them a little bit more nicely perhaps than might have been the case. But you still have to go through a series of entrance exams, and then some interviews as well, where we try and not throw them off, but try and see their brains working. So they're not really sort of yes/no answers, but they're ones to try and get their brains sort of bouncing around, laterally thinking. And so how do you feel that the school had planned for your arrival? And do you have any particular memories of your first day?
I think we were a bit of an unknown before we arrived. And as this sort of last year has shown, you can't really prepare for an unknown. So the first day, we didn't meet any of each other. We hadn't met each other beforehand at all. The first day we arrived at school, the first thing we did was sort of go round to the front of school to have the photographs taken.
Which we didn't know about.
And then everybody else in the meantime had gone into chapel. They sort of held chapel until our photography session had finished, and then we had to go in sort of after everybody else.
Which was very daunting, walking into a school of boys. Yeah.
And then I think we all remember singing the first hymn, because our voices were so much higher than everybody else. And I think after that we probably didn't sing hymns for a few.
No, for 2 years.
It was far too embarrassing.
So when you first began, so you came and joined into the sixth form, so A levels were obviously sort of a central part of it. But what else? So you had the A levels. So which subjects did you do, and what sort of extracurricular sports were you able to get involved with as well?
I think at the time, that most schools focused more on the academics. I don't think schools at the time really, the sport wasn't as important, not as it is now anyway, which is just as well, because the school didn't really prepare for us to do any sort of sports. And I think we've all said, because as there's 5 of us, it was very hard to do any sort of tennis or very many sports at all. So we did our best with a badminton and a tennis game every now and again.
It seems, well, sort of looking back, it seems a sort of a slightly odd number, 5 of us, but we seem to think there should have been a 6th, but they dropped out at the last minute. I don't know whether that's correct or not. But yeah, I think as far as sport was concerned, it was difficult.
So 1 short of a tennis team and 2 short of a netball team, basically.
Absolutely.
And 3 short of a rowing.
We were rowing for.
What were the cocks, perhaps? But yeah, I mean, it does sound remarkable. It doesn't sound as though there was a particular plan of a certain number of girls that were being looked for. I think it does seem as though you were the girls who wanted to come to the school, and that was how the choice was made, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe we were just a small enough number to be an experiment without it having to be sort of too big and potentially too disastrous.
Yeah.
Well, I always understood that as long as there were no more than 10, then they didn't have to have sort of special facilities for us. I think once they went over the number 10, then they had to have proper changing rooms and facilities like that.
So I'm going to take this down into the gutter a little bit. So where were the loos, and where did you get changed for games then?
I think the first year, the loos were just around the corner from your study. So between your study and the small dining room.
Yeah.
I think there was some very neat loos there.
Ladies' staff toilets, weren't they?
Yeah.
Right. And they're still there. So you're now making me think we should get a plaque put up or something.
What, one of those blue circles?
A blue circle, exactly.
And then we changed. I think the first year, when it was just the 5 of us, we had a room above the Rhodes room, which had a shower and a kettle in it.
Yes, we did. And that's where we got changed for sport for the first year. You're quite right. And then the second year, we moved over to the pavilion.
Cricket pavilion,
Cricket pavilion. And there was more girls. We got changed in there for sport.
Right. And we're actually coming to you from the Rhodes room at the moment. For those who can see this on screen, everywhere in the school changes dramatically, and I'm sure there weren't screens and things like that here, but that's the room that we're in. So we're directly underneath your old sort of, I suppose, girls' common room or girls' day room would be a good way to describe it.
I think it was just a sort of a bolt hole in case we felt we needed to escape any time.
Yes, it was described to us, I seem to remember, as somewhere we might want to go if we feel ill.
Oh, goodness, okay. So I've got another question here from Miggy Biller, who asks, as a girl joining this virtually all-male environment, what was it that seemed the strangest or that surprised you the most?
Can I just say, it's so lovely to hear from Miggy. Miggy taught Sue and I, we did, it was at an OA level in maths biology.
Yes, maths.
Miggy, at the time, I think, was the only female teacher in the school, and she was an absolute star. So I'm assuming she's listening tonight or with us tonight. So it's lovely to hear from you, and I'm really sorry I've forgotten the question now.
Well, I'd like to second that, because she was my teacher as well. She taught me A-level maths, and I think, well, I'd like to say to her, she must have found it very difficult, because I think she was one of the only female teachers amongst everybody else. And what we found most difficult, I think, going into a classroom when you're the only girl, and I was used to a co-ed school, and just having to speak out in front of people. Always difficult when you're new in a school or new in a classroom, but just being the only girl, I found that really hard.
Yes, going into the dining room. if you didn't have a companion to go into the dining room, that was quite daunting as well, because it was deciding, do I sit on my own, or do I be brave and go and sit with somebody, or can I even see anybody that I know that I could go and sit with? So, but I rather suspect that's not that different from nowadays. When you are new into a school environment, it's still daunting, but I do remember that being difficult. And the most surprising thing, going back to what we said earlier for me, was the first hymn in chapel, because it had just never occurred to me that boys sing with deep voices.
Yeah. Yes, I think it was just all the situations where I felt very, very conspicuous.
Yes.
Yeah, we just stood out, couldn't hide anywhere.
There's a question there's a question that's coming from Catherine Miller. So thanks for this one. It's a new question. And it's were there any school theatre productions that you could take part in, and did the school take advantage of the opportunity to have women taking female roles?
Well, the answer to that is yes, we did. Yeah,
Yes,
we were all in various different productions in the drama school, and I think we all really enjoyed it.
No, we didn't.
No, sorry, Nikki, you didn't.
Yeah, I don't think we were sort of put under any pressure. I think it was sort of suggested we might like to take part in drama productions, but if we really didn't want to, they could go to Queen Anne's or somewhere. And I think at that point we all thought, oh no, that wouldn't look very good.
Well, I think in the first year there was a Grove House play, and there were only 2 female parts, so we couldn't really back out. And even my one with that two tiny lines, just was the undoing of me. I hated it.
I remember we did Wojciech, and that was in the round, I believe.
Yes.
So you couldn't even go and hide at the back of the stage, because wherever you went, I had my husband sat on the front row with his friends, and wherever you went, you just couldn't hide. And it was daunting, but I think any production is. I mean, I when I went off to Sunderland to do pharmacy, I used to love being in all the pantomimes and all those sort of things. So I think it's just good fun. Yeah.
I think we did a really good one for the commemoration. Was it the 1350 commemoration of the school?
It was.
Paulinus was here or something like that.
Yeah,
that was one of my best days at school, actually. We had a fantastic day. There was lots of celebrations, and it ended up in this massive sort of pageant play sort of thing that was just, I think it involved everybody in the school, if I remember, or as many people as possible. And it was so well done. It was brilliant.
And that's worth bearing in mind, because of course it's not too long now until the 1400th anniversary in 2027, and of course this year's the 45th anniversary of your joining the school, and 2026 will obviously. We talked about this the other week, didn't we? You know, there's no gentle way of putting it. It is by definition 45 years ago, and in 2026 will be 50 years, so the half century will come up as well, which would be another tremendous thing. I'm asked to send birthday cards to Old Peterites, especially when they hit milestone birthdays. And it just so happened that a couple of months ago, I had to do 4 in one month, all to women who were in their 50s. And I thought, well, that's a great sign in many ways of the fact that, you know, you were the pioneers, but now there is a great sense of legacy and history to girls being at the school. So today the school is 55%, 45% boys to girls. So it really is a properly fully co-ed environment. But you were the ones who started up. Without a beginning, you couldn't get to where we are today. So Victoria, back to you for more questions.
More questions. So we have one here. We have one here from David Jesper. As father of Nikki, now Goodwin, with OP Simon Goodwin's son-in-law, was being one of the first 5 girls in 1,349 years, I'm reading this now, to break the mold. With hindsight, was that a challenge well worth being subjected to?
I don't think that I ever thought about it at the time we were at school in that respect. I think that, yes, I was very aware that we were first girls at school, but it didn't strike me as being anything other than a little bit scary. And then it was going into a sixth form environment where we had to do our studies and whatever else. I am pleased I did it. I'm not certain that my academic life was the best in some respects, but I think that it certainly was a good experience. I don't feel as if I forged any pathways. I think it was just, that's what it was at the time. We were only 16 or 17, so we didn't have the opportunity to sort of think this is, well, I know Louise mentioned it. I didn't, in my head anyway, think this is part of history. I just went to school.
Yes, it's true. At the age of 16, you're feeling very self-conscious, and you're just aware of everybody obviously looking at you, and you can't really appreciate at the time. We didn't appreciate at the time, I guess, that it was a privilege. I mean, obviously it was a hell of an experience, and as I said before, a great opportunity. But it's now looking back on it that we realise how fantastic it was. How lucky we were to be able to do it. But it was it was a daunting experience, but it was a fantastic experience at the same time. So we were feeling good, but obviously we were feeling a bit awkward, and especially, and you can see this in the photographs, we were feeling embarrassed. But we were on show. We were in the limelight. We were really conspicuous. We were really standing out. And we liked that, at least I liked it, but at the same time we were shy. So we had lots of different emotions going on at the same time. And I suppose it was a really good learning curve for life to have this challenge, to be able to come through this challenge and stand up for ourselves.
I think we survived, obviously we survived it, but I wouldn't volunteer to do it again.
Well, it depends. If you're shy, if you're a very shy person, it must be quite painful in a way. I was quite shy, but I wasn't that shy. So I don't know about the others.
I think for me, it did me well, because I went into a very male-dominated career. I went into accountancy, and there were very few girls in accountancy. And then I went into banking, and there were even fewer girls in that. So whenever I was thrown into a situation where I was the only girl in the room, it didn't actually faze me, which was fantastic. And it was great training for that. Not that I actually thought about it at the time, but I have thought about it since. So for me, it was great. It was a really good grounding. It was very difficult at the time, but I guess I'm grateful for having had that experience.
Maybe it's the ice breaking that I wouldn't do again. I mean, the experience was okay, but just being the first, I'd rather be further down the line.
Further down the track, yeah.
And before, as the last few weeks came and went by before term began, did you have any particular sort of thoughts going in your mind as to what you thought it might be like, or did you just sort of feel that you would just turn up on the day? And I mean, how well prepared do you think the school made you to come and join the school?
There wasn't a great deal of preparation, I don't think.
No, I don't think there was. We hadn't sort of been introduced to each other beforehand. We hadn't sort of been shown around the school or anything like that.
I don't think we even knew what the others' names, did we? I think it was a total shock on the day. I think we knew how many girls to expect.
We didn't fit in.
We definitely weren't. It hadn't been planned very well, that bit of it.
I guess in a way, the school perhaps weren't sure how to plan it, because it was such an unusual experience that they perhaps,
Was St. Peter's one of the first all-boys school to actually go co-ed? I think it must have been.
There were a few early ones. At my boarding school that I was at down south, I know 3 or 4 of the girls that left when I did at the end of O-levels went to boys' schools, or that had been traditionally boys' schools.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Zoe, that it was. I mean, going back 50 years, that really was right at the front end of schools making that decision, as in the boys' school taking in girls. There was quite a flurry in the 1980s, and then in the 1990s, it became far more common. And now, of course, the landscape has changed really quite dramatically from it being very much a common pattern to have single-sex schooling and a few co-eds to now much more sort of co-ed all the way through. We've got a question that's come in from Helen Austin. So first of all, hello, Helen. I hope you're very well indeed. Just a quick bit of rowing chat before I ask your question. You'll be pleased to know that the new boathouse fully withstood the latest floods that came through and is still looking fantastic down on the fields down there. So, but Helen's question is this. At the time, did you imagine the school would become fully co-ed, or did you think it would stay mostly boys with a few girls going through? Did you have any thoughts about that?
I think we thought that it would become fully co-ed in the sixth form. Did we think that it would go further down the school? I don't think many other public schools had done that. I think it was just the sixth form. So I don't think it would have been on our, what you really would have thought about it. I think it was just the sixth form that would have been what would have continued to be co-ed.
Yes, because I think it was quite a long time. Was it something like 1987 before it went fully co-ed?
Yes, and all the way through later on. Okay, yeah. So Robert Hudson asked the question, who is the headmaster? Well, I can answer that one. That was Peter Gardner. But what recollections do you have of your headmaster here, Peter Gardner?
He was lovely. He was a charming man, very charming, very calm, very quiet, just right, really.
He was very lovely. He was lovely to us. He was. I think he gave us some sort of career talk. I know he talked to me about accountancy, and he was very inspirational. He was very arty, though. He definitely wasn't into maths or science, I don't think.
No, he taught general studies. I think that's it. Sue and I did general studies
book club that we had to go to that he did. I remember that. No.
I was fortunate enough to go to Peter's memorial service a couple of years ago, and certainly the descriptions that you've given off, and also his interest in the arts and drama and music and things was very much part of what was being spoken about in that service, which was a lovely event. But back to you, Victoria.
Louise has got a good story to tell about.
I was going to say that he was very gallant, a gentleman, because. So when we were at school, I don't know if it's still the case, but if a pupil and a master or a teacher approach a door, at the time the pupil had to open the door for the master. Does that still happen?
I'd like to say yes. Actually, to be fair, just today, exactly that thing did happen to me, which was jolly kind. But yeah, so sorry. Back to you, Louise.
So anyway, I was approaching the door the same time as Mr. Gardner, and I was wondering, do I open the door or does he open the door for me? And being a gentleman, he opened the door for me. So that was just a nice little anecdote to tell you about. It's obviously still we were being treated as ladies, and I would say, I don't know if you found this as well, but the guys there were very pleasant, and they were all gentlemen. Did you not feel that? We were treated.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
yes.
By and large. There
may have been one or two exceptions, but I can think about.
But they were. I don't know about you, but they're always trying to make me laugh. The guys trying to outdo each other to make us laugh, and that was just hilarious. It was great. Yeah. So
I think they were a bit unsure as to whether to sort of treat us like ladies, as it were, or one of the lads.
Well, I got treated like a lady, didn't you?
No, I think I was definitely treated as one of the lads.
Yeah, I think we were more.
Yeah. I think it was a little bit of a competition as to how much you could embarrass us. I'm not sure. Anyway, yes.
I always found that there's a real sense of community. So no matter what happened within school and how much you might get teased or not get teased or whatever went on in school, as soon as you went out of school, then you were definitely one of the school and looked after very, very carefully. So I think that sense of community is just really important. But were any of you boarders? And where did you live? Sarah Hewins has asked us if you were boarders, because it's obviously a great community spirit there as well.
I didn't live in York, so initially I was going to stay at the headmaster's house, at Mr. Gardner's house. But then that didn't happen in the end, and I actually stayed with an aunt who lived in York for a while, and then I subsequently had a flat in Birmingham and lived there. So I didn't actually board at the school, but there weren't, none of us actually boarded, did we?
No, none of us were boarders. I think we spent quite a lot of time there. I think I remember going for tea quite often, but no, none of us were boarders.
I think I always wanted to be. I spent as much time as possible here.
Now, there's a scurrilous question which we must ask. This is from Sophie Atkinson that's come through. It says she's noticed that some of us are sipping on wine, so we're relaxing at the end of the day with a glass of wine in front of us. Were there any trips to the pub? You're asked.
Oh, never.
No. And I can offer you a full amnesty and presidential pardon right now, just in case there's anything that
Is that even if the children are listening?
Saturday lunchtime before games, always.
Yes. On the way home from Senior Science Society at Queen Margaret's.
Yeah, definitely.
The old Star Inn was quite a favourite of us all.
The Star Inn, yes.
Any day with a Y in it.
Bay Horse and Marygate.
Yeah.
Bay Horse and Marygate. Yeah.
We could fill up the rest of the time just running through all the pubs that you've been to in York.
Other than that, not at all.
Blackpool in it. Yeah, Escrick.
Yeah.
The Blackpool, yeah.
Escrick,
The White Swan at Deaton.
I think we went to the White Swan at Deaton actually after Queen Margaret's.
Yeah.
And so did you have some pubs that you knew that you couldn't go into because the teachers might be in there, and others that you went into, or did it not make any difference?
We didn't go to the Burton Stone, that was a bit obvious.
Well, I've heard some very amusing stories about the exhibition just down Bootham, apparently having a very convenient back door that went into the car park and popped out on Gillygate. So there's an early warning system at the front of the bar said teachers coming in the front, get out the back type thing, which sounds remarkably like a setup we had in Sherborne when I was a boy as well. So there we go. Perhaps nothing much changes. So we're going to move on shortly into sort of life after St. Peter's, but before we do that, what do you think are the really standout, fondest memories of your time at school?
I think my favourite times were actually doing those plays, the drama productions. I think I'd always wanted to do them at my previous school, but never actually. I'd never been pushed into it, and because we were the only girls, we were therefore pushed into doing those drama roles, and we had great fun doing them. So I think they all stand out, and in particular that commemoration day where we celebrated all day and had this fantastic pageant, and I remember it being beautifully sunshiny and everything going perfectly well. Whether it did or not, I don't know, but that's how I remember it.
I think any of the events where everybody got together, and sports days could be quite amusing. That was another one that you could link in with the pub and sports day, which wasn't the best way to do it. But no, anything where we all got together.
Yeah, I was going to say things like the house singing and the house drama plays, and just sort of getting together with everybody else was always really good fun.
And of course, we all turned 18 in the second year. So
no, we didn't.
Well, apart from you. So there were a lot of 18th birthday parties.
And very nice ones.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I was lucky to go to the 18th birthday parties in the first year as well as the second year. So that was absolutely fantastic, having all these beautiful parties to go to. I really look forward to that. Yeah,
that's good.
Well, just before we start to move on and looking ahead, there was a lovely question that came in from Richard Kirby, who says that, Nikki, he remembers your brother very well when joining the Grove in 1977. But he was interested to know, have you been back to the school since? And if you have been back, what have been the biggest changes that you've noticed?
I think we went to 3 OP dinners. Went to the first one when we left. I went second year after, because that was when Simon, now husband, left. And then I think we went to one about 10 years later, but then I didn't go back to school. Well, I was in and around school because Simon was involved. He used to go and help with the climbing and go on the winter trips and things. But I didn't go back to school until, was it the 30th anniversary, Louise and Sue, we went to?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah, and it changed massively by then, because Queen Anne's was, or the building that was Queen Anne's, was all integrated, and it seemed a very different place. So, yeah.
I didn't realise that Queen Anne's had been integrated, actually. I haven't been back at all, but I moved away and haven't been back to York, so that's probably why.
Yeah, let's move on to life after school. Over to you.
Yeah, Bill Hudson has asked, what do you think being at St. Peter's, how do you think being at St. Peter's influenced your next steps after leaving school?
Well, I went to university, so it was very much, I think, probably my previous school, everybody didn't go to university, or the majority of people didn't go to university, and you weren't pushed to go. Whereas at St. Peter's, it was starting to become the norm, I think. And therefore, Peter's definitely helped me go to university. And also I'd actually, I had a boyfriend at the time, and I wanted to go to university with him. And I got into a different university, and Peter Gardner actually rang up and helped me go to the university of my choice, which was Bath University. So he definitely, it was definitely St. Peter's that pushed me on my way. And I went to do economics at Bath, and I'm very grateful to that, because I really enjoyed the course.
I think I knew, before I started at St. Peter's, I think I knew what I wanted to do and what course I wanted to do. So I knew which A-levels I had to do. Presumably by the end of lower six, I knew which grades and everything I had to get. So again, like Zoe, I was just very grateful that St. Peter's got me to the college of my choice.
And
Yes, I think I felt the same, because you were led towards university life, and yeah, that was exactly the same sort of thing. I again, perhaps not such a conscious decision, but more just because that was the direction that the school was aiming you at, so if you like.
yeah, and I went to Newcastle University, and I studied architecture. So at St. Peter's, I was doing French, English, and art. But I ended up following the languages, the art at the same time, because I was in London and Paris as an interior designer. But I ended up in France as a teacher, teaching English and being an artist at the same time. And yes, it was due to the determination and everybody around us going to university that gave us the push to want to go. Definitely.
And how did you find sort of the environment then? So having been sort of 5 girls in a school of boys, apart from that, and then moving on to university and into the world of work, it must have been actually quite a very different sort of environment for you going on in terms of gender balance. So I wonder if you've got any thoughts or recollections on that.
Well, having been to a sort of an all-boys school, I then went into a profession that was mostly women. But I can remember on the course I did, there were 3 boys. So I think it probably gave me a bit of empathy with them, because I could sort of, picture myself in the same sort of situation.
I can remember it going when I was at Sunderland on one of the first days I was there. And this is perhaps where you recognise you're a little bit spoilt at school, in that I was carrying my folders and so forth, walking towards the door, assuming that door was going to be held open by the boy that had just gone ahead of me, who let go of it, just and I was left looking rather foolish, really. But so that made me think that when I mentioned earlier about being embarrassed by the boys at school, perhaps there was also an element that they did look after us as well.
I don't know if the boys had a sort of a briefing before we arrived, whether they were told how they should behave towards us, or whether
Simon said today they'd been told to sort of keep clear, as it were, but maybe that's because they weren't sixth form. My husband I'm sure you're looking at saying was the year below, and so was still in uniform. And yeah, he said they'd been told not to socialise with us, or certainly to keep a distance.
What did you feel sort of society's expectations of you in terms of career pathways, or perhaps your parents' expectations were of you at the time? And do you think that might have changed at all?
Oh, I think it's changed hugely. I think at the time we were going to university, we were probably one of the first girls in our families to go to university. It was definitely a new thing in my family. I think I was the first girl to go to university from my family. Yeah, I think I was. So definitely not pushed academically, much more, go to finishing school, go and get a lovely job as a secretary somewhere and marry somebody, who's going to provide for you for the rest of your life. It was much more, that was the background. Whereas I think we were probably one of the first to actually want to have a career and not want to, that's probably, no, I'm sure there were people before us who did also want to, but we were one of the first who could get a career and be the sole providers if we needed to be or whatever.
I had a slightly different experience to that, because my mum more so had two brothers, and they both went through private school and to university. And my mum was never expected to because of the generation. She therefore was very, very keen that I should pursue a career. So from being, it's tongue in cheek, but I always think from being 5, I was always going to do the sciences at A level and go on and do some sort of career, a vocational job. I ended up in pharmacy, which was I loved it. It was a great job and I enjoyed all of that. But I was sort of funneled by my parents as much as school as well in that direction, for which I'm very grateful, really, because I probably would say I've always needed to be just given a little nudge in the right direction, as opposed to having the ability to do it myself.
So, have you all stayed in touch since you left St. Peter's? It's lovely seeing you all together. Did you stay in touch?
Not initially.
We had a reunion, didn't we? Now, how long ago was that? When we all met up in the Italian restaurant?
I was trying to think.
16.
I think that was about 5 years ago.
I'm sure it was
Initially,
2016.
It was very different to now because there was kind of no social media. There was no way really of staying in touch with people, or it wasn't as easy to stay in touch with people. So we probably saw each other maybe at Christmas when we came back from universities and things. And then, of course, we all went off on jobs and got married, had children. That took up a lot of time. So really, it hasn't been till sort of quite recently that we have picked up again. But I think very much we picked up where we left off. And conversation flows.
Yeah, it has done in the last few days anyway, hasn't it?
Certainly.
Yes, it certainly has.
Yeah, lots of nice souvenirs. Yeah.
Yeah, it was lovely catching up with you last Thursday as well. So we got to meet you all for the first time then, and just sort of seeing exactly. So the years seem to roll back very, very well. There's a lovely, it's a message, not a question, from John Lethan. It says, "Great to see you all, team, bringing back wonderful memories." So thank you to John Lethan for that lovely message.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And there's a question from Piers Dennison. And so Piers would like to say this. So this is you may feel this is a leading question, but if you could go back and give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, what do you think that advice would be?
Wow, good question, Piers. Wow.
Well, I think I would say just work harder, because I think we were all a bit distracted by the fact there were so many boys and so few girls. And I think I'd have done academically a lot better if I'd just spent a little bit time more studying.
Same here, yeah. Definitely.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we had too much fun, didn't we?
We did. We enjoyed it. We had fun. But there was definitely not, the emphasis wasn't on the
academic outcome. Yeah, I agree with that very definitely. But don't tell my children.
Do as I say, not as I did.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tremendous advice.
Definitely. So one of the questions that we've been asked is from Robert End, who says, have you considered in 100 or 500 years, students looking at school now will consider you all to be pioneers? And I think it's particularly important when we're kind of sitting here on International Women's Day that we think about these and reflect on these things. So how would you all envision being remembered?
Wow.
Deep question.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether we felt we were a bit of a sort of an experiment. I mean, if it had all gone horribly wrong with us, would there have been a second intake of girls? I don't know. So I'd like to think that, you know, we had done all right, and you know, it sort of evolved, and they kept taking girls.
Yeah, we're given a positive input in a very short period of time to allow them to move forward with it, perhaps unintentionally, but it has worked. And
we paved the way, didn't we, girls?
We did.
We did. I think it was the sign of the times rather than us, really.
Yes, I think so.
I think, as every other public school in the whole country has now become co-ed, it probably wasn't us, and it was probably the situation of the of the time. But yeah, we were just part of it. So I think that's I'm very happy to have been part of it.
Yeah.
And did you imagine at the time, did you ever think that actually the school would become completely co-ed and it would be as it is today?
No, I don't think I ever did. I think it was. It would always just be a sixth form at the time.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? How far things have come, and just how things have changed in a relatively short time, really.
Well, I think that the school has evolved in so many ways, not just sort of taking girls. It's just evolved and developed through the years, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the school did really well was day pupils. I don't want to go off track really, but my son went to Stowe and he was one of the first day pupils at Stowe. And they were awful at it. They just didn't do it right at all. Whereas I think the day houses, we all felt very part of the school. We didn't feel as if we were sort of the poor cousins of the boarders at all. We felt very much part of the whole school. And that didn't happen at Stowe. So very recently, he's had a very poor experience of that. So I think St. Peter's did really well at the day boy thing.
Well, there certainly is a nice, caring attitude at St. Peter's that I think helps you feel good and secure. The size of the classes, we haven't talked about that, but of course that helps tremendously, so that the individual has more confidence, I guess. And it's not just St. Peter's and the size of the classes, but it's also York. York itself being a small town, it's just a very, very pleasant experience to go to St. Peter's in a place like York. It's all together. It's interlaced, if you like. I think
so too. I think York is a fantastic place,
especially having done architecture myself. But just soaking in the beautiful old buildings, it was just a real pleasure and a feel good feeling, and the sense of history too. That's often when my children have been in schools in France, and you just see a building that looks like it's temporary, and I think, I don't want my children to go there. It just looks like it could be blown down in the wind. Whereas St. Peter's has got this sense of history, which is just so wonderful. And so, as I say, we were so privileged to be able to study there. Yeah.
It's certainly something that I feel about the place, and sort of having moved up here from the south, I've not come across anywhere that's got this combination of 50 acres of sort of space to go running down to the river and out to the Ings on the one side, and then you walk out of the gate and turn right, and within 5 or 6 minutes you're in the heart of York and all that York has to offer. It is quite the most remarkable combination of factors, which I just simply don't think any other school in the country is fortunate enough to have. And so yeah, I think I'd certainly agree with everything you just said there. We're going to have to very sadly bring this towards towards a conclusion now, but I'm going back to Victoria's point earlier on about this being about being International Women's Day. I wondered, are there any messages that you would like to give, or you would give to the girls in particular at St. Peter's today, based upon your experiences of not just St. Peter's, but your experiences of life, and any message that you'd like to give to them today?
I think I'd just like to say, just make sure that whatever degree, course, or whatever career you follow, make sure it's a career, it's a subject or something that you really want to do, rather than you're pushed into by family or friends or whatever. Because well, I've been an accountant now for 45 years or thereabouts, and no, not 45 years, 35 years, and I've enjoyed it, but it's a jolly long time to be at work. So I think, you know, that choice of your career, and you just make sure that it's something that you actually love and you'd be happy doing for a long time, because you'll be doing it for a long time.
I think the thing now as well is the fact that you don't have to make the decision straight away, because there are the opportunities to go when you're older, whereas when we were there, it was a case of you leave school, you go to university, you make your choice at school, you go to university, and that's it. Whereas now, it doesn't matter if you don't decide until you're 25 or even 30 what you want to do. The opportunities are still there, you can still do it, so just don't rush in.
Can I just say, I think it's great that all the pupils are back in school today. I think that's a really good sort of move. I can't imagine what a difficult year it's been for sort of pupils, staff and parents. So well done to you all. And as I say, great that you're back in school. And I would just say, enjoy school, just sort of seize every opportunity, enjoy every moment, and do things. If it takes you outside your comfort zone, just go for it, just enjoy things.
And I would just like to add that I think that St. Peter's gives you the foundations and the determination for a fulfilling life. And I would just add, be brave. And as you were saying, Louise, accept challenges and go for it. Yeah.
And I think I can only agree with that, because they're all very, very strong statements. So yes, I agree completely.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's just been tremendous, just sitting and listening to you and having a chat with you this evening. You are the pioneers, you are the trailblazers, and I can sense that you've got that quiet pride about it. But you know, you're absolutely right to have that sense of pride, that it can't have been easy, no matter how much you sort of look back now and think, oh, we didn't feel very prepared and we just turned up and we just made the best of it type thing. But you know, it is quite astonishing to look back and consider that you were the ones who sort of opened the doors for all those generations of girls and women who followed on behind you. And I hope you do take that strong sense of pride with you. And thank you, Louise, for your very kind words. It's been a heck of a year. I'm rather hopeful that the last two big projects that we've had to do, so one for reopening, which happened today, and then the other one for the awarding of GCSE and A-level grades, I'm crossing my fingers that those are the last two major puzzles that we've got to solve before we get out the other end of it. I'm crossing my fingers that if the roadmap works and restrictions are lifted from the 21st of June, we'll get 3 weeks at the end of the summer term to have proper life at school. I was in touch with the Dean last week, who's very warm to the idea of us being back in the Minster for Commem, subject to all the guidelines being available. So that's what we're looking forward to. But I think it's lovely that we sort of, in a way, bring it to a conclusion by looking back, you know, the ancient ways that we talked about last week, but also looking forwards. And so I just would like to conclude on behalf of everybody who's listening and watching this evening. Thank you to you five. It's been just wonderful spending time and listening to your recollections and your thoughts about life. It really has been wonderful. I don't know, Victoria, whether you'd like to.
Just to again say thank you very much. It's been wonderful meeting you, and it's been a real honour to chat to you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting us to be in conversation.
It's been a treat, an absolute treat, and I would just like to finish up by saying thank you to the home team. As I say, so a bit behind the camera here, we've got some great people here. So to Philippa Dunford-Jeffs in the OP office, who put all of this together and has done a tremendous amount of hard work. To Victoria, thank you so much for giving up some time this evening to be here, and to our fantastic technical team of Sarah and Barry and Jay. Thank you so much for, as I say, it takes a heck of a lot of kit to make me look like I know what I'm doing. You've done a tremendous job this evening. So thank you all very much indeed, and to all of you, whether you're sort of OPs or current members of the school who've tuned in this evening, thank you for making it a real community event. And let's look forward to when we can actually gather for a proper sort of a Peterite day in real life. But for now, this has just been wonderful. So from all of us here at school to all of you at home, wherever you are, and especially to you 5 wonderful, wonderful women, thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's been a lovely experience. Thank you so much indeed, and our very good wishes to you all.